Na debi la hapa nchini, debi la Mashemeji lilitoka sare tasa. Hakuna yote yule aliyecheka na wavu kati ya AFC Leopards na shemeji zao Gor Mahia katika debi ambalo lilikuwa limesubiriwa kwa hamu na hamumu. Limekuwa likiahirishwa, linarudishwa, linaahirishwa, linarudishwa. Hatimaye iliporejeshwa katika uga wa Nyayo ulifurika hadi kulikuwa hakuna nafasi hata ya nzi kutua. Lakini baada ya dakika 90 na kidogo tu za nyongeza, mchuano huo ukatamatika suluhu bin suluhu. Hujambo mpenzi mtazamaji na karibu katika makala ya The Football
Hassan, before we even move on, you said the debi
la Mashemeji.
Between who and who?
AFC Leopards na Gor Mahia.
Now my brother here bought a new shoe.
Imeandikwa nini?
Leopards.
Imeandikwa Leopards.
Leopards.
Ngoja.
Leopards.
Leopards.
Lakini kimetoka mlima.
Ni Muranga sio. Sio nimetoka Muranga sio. Sasa Leopards.
Hiyo Muranga sio.
Ulinunua wayaki way.
Inafaa kwa nini kwani?
Deno.
Deno focus
kwanza tuone.
No, it's supposed to be what?
Hapana, Deno focus.
It's Leopard.
Leopard.
Hapana, sisi leo.
No. By the way,
Yeah.
now you are the one to protect me. Wewe ndio unanilinda.
Lakini sasa kama umekuja na kiatu imeandikwa Leopard.
Karibu ya mama.
It's a new brand.
We pay you a lot of money. Yani Leopard.
No, iko na mbili. Okay, brother, hata nicheke na kiatu ni yangu. Hassan, Mashemeji dabi ujamaliza.
So let's just quickly get into a question of the week. Question of the weekend. Of course, it's all about the Manchester derby. Manchester United are hosting Manchester City at Old Trafford this weekend. Who will carry the day in the Manchester derby? That is the question we're asking. Of course, you can tweet to Hassan Juma at @Kenya and at Dennis Otachi. SMS 22151. And of course, aside from that, you can get to Facebook pages of Rogers Shtemi. That is at Rogers Shtemi, right?
Yeah, Rogers Shtemi.
And Cedric Musumba at Cedric Musumba on Facebook. Get to give them your views on what you are expecting this weekend in the Manchester derby. Now, Hassan, as we move on.
Wamesema Shtema yuko Facebook ama X.
No, Shtemi yuko
Ako TikTok.
Bro, ako TikTok bana.
Ako kutap tap.
Ako tap sunflower.
No.
Bro,
Oh, we are live.
We are live.
We need to be live.
We are live. Tap. Tuma flowers. Tuma flowers hapo.
Ya maziwa.
Maziwa. Hata kama mkata bro.
Na umelazimisha niingie huko. Tap.
Yaani amenyamaza ako live pale.
No.
Ameshikilia hivi. Asionekane.
Hapana, niko Facebook.
Ako tu hapo. Bro, hapo nasema huko ni mkangai.
Well, of course, those are the pros and cons, of course, of social media. But welcome to this show, Rogers Shtemi, Cedric Musumba, and of course, we do have Daniel Kariuki, and it seems that it's going to be a very yes. It's going to be a very entertaining and enjoyable show that we have tonight. So, Hassan, let's quickly begin to peleke na Sleepy Weekend.
Safi, tuende kwa Sleepy Weekend. Hii ni tamu. Hii ukipenda AFC Leopards against Kakamega Homeboys. KCB will be playing Gor Mahia. Everton will host Arsenal. Aston Villa against Nottingham Forest. The Manchester derby, Manchester United at Old Trafford against Man City. Real Madrid against Valencia. FC Barcelona will be at home against Real Betis. Sevilla against Atletico Madrid in La Liga. Atalanta against Lazio. And Werder Bremen against Frankfurt in Germany's Bundesliga. These 10 matches are this week's magical 10 matches. Right?
Yes, the magical 10 matches of the weekend. But let's quickly run through what happened this week by recapping the week. We begin with the Rising Stars. Of course, they were in action, rather in camp in preparation of their AFCON Under-20 tie. That will be, rather AFCON Under-20, that will be taking place in Egypt. Remember, it was moved away from Ivory Coast, and we'll be talking about them in a bit in the show. Aside from that, AFC Leopards released their expenditure from the expenditure report from the Mashemeji derby. We'll also be talking about that in a bit. But I want us to talk about one man who said that, you know, at the end of the season, he will be calling it a day from Manchester City. Cedric Musumba, what will you remember about Kevin De Bruyne and what impact his, or rather, what void is he going to leave at Manchester City?
His work rate is quite undefinable. Remember, testing that he had at Chelsea, no one actually will really trace his footprints. But coming back to EPL, and that is the Manchester Cities, where actually he redefined and discovered his form. And he has gone ahead winning as an accolades with that particular club. And even he's among one of the golden generation that Belgium has ever celebrated in life. I think it was quite in order for him to call it when Manchester City was really struggling and trying to erase.
But we've also seen him declining form in recent months.
His form actually was being surrounded by the kind of the quality that he was playing around. Remember, along the way, he has lost a lot of quality. The likes of Cancelo, they were actually bolted out of that particular team. And any other the likes of Fernandinho and other players in that particular team that would actually be as well as called as Man City golden generation. And this, even if according to me, it was the right time for him to call it when he's still, the iron is still actually hotter. But because
yes.
and again, can I say that he's not that blunt as people might think. He might find his form elsewhere where he's going. He's not a kind of a retirement that can really make him be a better KDB, maybe coming back in managerial level or any other form within the arenas of soccer.
Robbie, for me, one word, I think, was the engine of Man City.
Mtu wa Mrima. You take a look at in the last 10 years, if you remove Ozil from the equation, this is the man that, you know, was serving as his right, left, and center. I think when you take a look at the players that he assisted most as a Man City player, first was Sergio Aguero, and then you have Sterling, and then you have Haaland, and then you have Jesus,
Yes.
Gabriel Jesus. So, I mean, the void that is leaving, do you feel that he's out of form at the moment? Has that cost Man City to what they are at, what the form that we've seen them in?
I think this season has not been a very good season for Man City, and definitely, as you have put it, the last 4 seasons, because City have won the EPL for the last 4 seasons, he has had a big impact. And of course, we always say that a good dancer always knows when to exit, and I think that's what he has just done. He has just realized that now Man City inaachana na wale watu ambao wanakaa wazee kidogo, and is bringing in some new players who are young, like Mamush is a very good player.
Yes, 25.
25, and also the players like Phil Foden is also young.
Hassanov.
And also Akina Badiol and the rest.
Yes.
It means that if he continues being there, then he's going to slowly lose the value. Yenye ataanza kusahaulika haraka sana pale Man City, though he has had a very big impact. So I think it was a good decision yake kuondoka kwa sasa, and he has had a big impact. Ukiondoa KDB, you have mentioned several players who have actually benefited from very good crosses from KDB, and they have been having a very good season, those players, because of him.
Yes.
So definitely is a big.
Where should he go?
I think
There are rumors, you know, flying all over.
yeah, definitely. Most people will be expecting him to go to Saudi and maybe Qatar.
Or even the US.
Even the US, because definitely that is the best retirement places for most of the top players. But having seen him maybe it grow through the ranks, KDB has been quite influential at Man City. Remember the last 4 seasons, he has just been phenomenal. And also looking, he has been torment in chief against Arsenal, because whenever he plays against Arsenal,
Not only Arsenal, even Chelsea.
yeah, but mostly it has been against Arsenal. Look at last season.
Cedric is laughing.
Yeah,
Why not Real Madrid?
just hold your nerve first. Look at what happened. He came from injury when Man City were behind Arsenal, I think, in the title race. But his return just rejuvenated the entire squad, and they ended up winning the title. That tells you how important this KDB was for Pep. But having known that he knows exactly what time a good dancer can exit the stage, and also definitely gas. He has run out of gas from between his belly, and he knows he can't continue pushing against these upcoming players who can maybe embarrass him. So it's better to exit and maybe go there with at least some respect.
So, some other news making headlines this week. Let's quickly run through that. Aside from Kevin De Bruyne, who said he's exiting at the end of the season. Yes, they call them rejects who've perfected their craft at Nottingham Forest, and they had to make a statement against Manchester United. 1-0 was the final score in that tie against United in the Premier League. Let's move away from Elanga and his, running 85 meters in 9 seconds. Diogo Jota scored the only goal as Liverpool got a 1-0 win against Everton to win the Merseyside derby, and in doing so they extended their lead at the top of the English Premier League log. We move away from Liverpool's, that is the Reds. We move on to the other moments that are making that made headlines this week. Of course, from Liverpool, we move to Arsenal. Bukayo Saka back, and in 7 minutes he was on the score sheet. You can call him the most influential Arsenal player at the moment. They won against Fulham. 2-1 was the final score. Now, aside from Bukayo Saka, we move to another person that scored the most important goal in this week for Real Madrid. That is Rudiger. He scored that goal that made sure the game against Real Sociedad in Copa del Rey ended 4-4 for all. And in doing so, Real Madrid advanced to the finals of the Cup. Now, aside from Rudiger, let's move to the other pen that made headlines this week. Ferran Torres scored the only goal for Barcelona as they got a 1-0 win against Atletico Madrid, and now they will be facing Real Madrid in the final of Copa del Rey. Very interesting. Of course, most people are expecting Barcelona to win. Now, we move on to the other men and women that made headlines this week. We had the AC Milan taking on Inter Milan in Coppa Italia. First leg, it ended 1-1. A very interesting fixture. Of course, we had that match played at the San Siro. But let's move away from AC Milan. We take a look at the other things that made headlines. Now, in Bundesliga, or rather in Germany, we had the German Cup, that is the DFB Pokal Cup, and Arminia Bielefeld knocked out Bayer Leverkusen 2-1 to move to the final of DFB Pokal. And remember, Arminia Bielefeld plays in the 3rd division in Bundesliga. Let's move away from Arminia Bielefeld. We get into Chelsea. They were in action yesterday. Enzo Fernandez scored the only goal of the match as they cruised to the top 4 of the English Premier League. Yes, they are sitting perfectly there. And no, Dennis Otachi is very happy. They will be playing. We have to wait until the end of the season to see whether they will finish in the top 4. But for now, they're in the top 4. Now, we take a look at the biggest games of this weekend, where we have Lazio will be playing Atalanta. Very interesting tie in Italy. And from Italy, we move to Spain. Sevilla will be taking on Atletico Madrid. One to keep an eye on. And then, of course, in England, the biggest match we will see Manchester United hosting Manchester City, the Manchester Derby. Very, very interesting. Now, let's move away from that. Dennis, before we started the show, on prime time, they had a conversation. Now, this conversation was about comic books. I want to see whether the gentleman in the studio can remember Super Strikers. They know, hebu niweke Super Strikers hapa. It was comic books. Nataka kuona kama Cedric anakumbuka ama miaka imeenda. Super Strikers. Eshtemi unakumbuka nani na useme Shakes.
No,
Kila mtu anajua Shakes.
No, Shakes, the scoring striker. That's the only person I can remember.
Cedric, who do you remember?
Time has gone by.
Time imesonga.
Actually, it was being produced by Refugee, or it was...
No, it was from South Africa. Cedric, this Shakes tu unakumbuka?
Yeah, the main character.
Mchache.
The main character.
I think I also remember Shakes.
Hakuna mtu anakumbuka the dancing rasta.
Na huyu jamaa wa
Si ndio huyo dancing rasta?
yes.
El Matador. Klaus.
No, Shakes.
They know people are doing bad here.
Shakes. Because
Kila mtu hapa ni
They know.
Deno hata anajua
Deno
hizi
si ndio
masai.
whisper bana,
hata
Deno.
mkumbuki coach.
Unanipeana.
Coach Joma.
Deno.
Joma. Hey, mbaya.
Deno anakumbuka anyone?
Eh?
Deno hata alikuwa
Deno, you know
anajua.
is a youngin.
Oh.
Bado ni Gen Z, amesoma sana.
Even that shakes
Yes.
reminds me of a certain player we used to have at high school.
Yes.
So,
school
dude,
is this?
men's Copresano, a sound mind in a sound body, St. Peter's Momias. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Pole basi.
Yes.
Hatukujua tumekosea.
Kwa hata tunauliza tu.
No, can you continue where I've left because I can't continue.
Speak it from
Speak
there.
it,
I
continue.
can speak it from
Yes,
there.
you had shakes in the school.
Yeah. We had this certain player who used to have those runs, and yes, he was good at making those runs, but the end result.
Ganacho.
That is it.
Yes, of course. Let's get into a conversation this night, and it's all about FC Leopards, not Leopards. FC Leopards.
Unasema end result ilikuwa ni Leopard.
So, FC Leopards released a report on the expenditure for the last two big games that they played this season. The first one was against Shabana. This match was played at Machakos, that is Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos, and of course they collected 1.4 million shillings, and they spent 676,000 shillings, and of course the surplus was 700,077 shillings. Now, what iked people on social media, people were talking about the expenditure on Mashemeji Derby. Now, Roger Ishtemi, Cedric Musumba, Daniel Kariuki, I want us to talk about this. First, Ishtemi, hii kitu ilikuwa ukweli? Unajua tunaweza kuwa tunaongelea kitu na ilikuwa porojo. You have insiders.
No, but it was published on their official social media pages.
So ni ukweli? Kuanzia hapo.
Yeah.
Haya, ukiangalia hiyo report, najua probably inaweza kuwa haionekani vizuri. What seems off?
Accommodation.
Nini nakaa off?
Ticket management.
I think
369.
to start it off,
Yes.
let's talk about the coaches' fuel and then the bus fuel. I think
So, Eshtemi, are you saying that the FC should not fuel for the coach?
no. I was
They
still.
spend 8,000
Building
shillings
your
fueling
case.
for the coach.
You're cutting me short. I was still
Umesema
explaining.
tuanze na fuel.
Yeah. Looking at those expenses, I think those are the items that need to be on the budgets, not on the expenditure of the day. Because I think annually, FC should be having the annual budget of how much are we spending on fuel for either the bus or the coach's car. Unfortunately, they waited for the derby to generate that amount of money for them to fuel the bus and also fuel the coach's car. So it means if that money wouldn't have come through during the derby, then the bus would have stuck, coach wouldn't have held himself onto the pitch. Secondly, from where I sit, the coach should accompany the team, that's the bus. But how did the coach have his own car going for the derby? That's a question mark. Secondly, another item that I still question, the media hype. 97,000.
Item number 7.
97,000 for the media hype.
Honestly, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that indeed, whatever that quotation was either undervalued or somebody just decided to put that money in the pocket. Because media hype was literally a pro bono job. Robinson, you did that job on this show. I did it on my social pages, media
my work
pages.
to tell people
Exactly.
that we have this job this weekend.
So, whom exactly did they pay for that amount of money? That's one of the things that maybe anger a lot of Ingwe fans, because it's something that most of these fans have also been doing on their social media pages. Definitely somebody will try to argue out that maybe there was some big names who did that job well and good, but that should be a pro bono, because this is a derby.
Are you saying you're not a big name?
No, that's what they
I
done.
mean, you get almost 1 million engagements a week on Facebook.
Imagine.
Yes.
But, no.
Ama Ishtemi ulionwa kando.
By who?
Kuuliza tu. Cedric, when you take a look at this expenditure, the total amount that was collected was 7.395 600 rather, 37,395,600.
there were calculations that you are showing me that sikuwa naelewa. Ebu labda utuelezee Eshtemi na Kariuki wanaweza elewa.
You know, Robbie, at a blink of an eye,
Yes.
you can literally tell that this was a rush over, and it was actually being guided by the amount of amassed cash that came out of that particular derby, so as to look at the figures that can really make it work for them, but not for the public at large. Because if you go by the permutation, we are being told that Mahia Stadium is 30,000 capacity, right? And
yes, it's 30,000, but
yeah,
you're not allowed to fill it to capacity.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
But we are going by the figures that actually were flying even before the game. We were being told that these tickets were there actually being found on the social media platform. And we realized that the terraces was going at a cost of 300 shillings, right? The VVIP could go at 5,000 shillings, and the VIP itself will go at 1,000 shillings. So as maybe to do away with the VVIP and the VIP, and say that maybe if everyone was to pay a flat rate of 300 shillings, multiplied by the 30,000, that's 9 million.
Let's not do 30,000 because the regulations do not allow you to fill the stadium to capacity. You have to leave.
But
you have to leave.
Yeah,
out
but
some.
You see,
let's do with 20. Let's deal with 20.
Robbie, we cannot go that direction because rules were flouted. We were told that it was up to even over the capacity. Some of guys could not even find seats to sit on. They were actually standing. Where did they actually get the access of that particular set? If the regulation was something to stand by. So as to say, there were no regulation by that particular time. Even the number that we are trying to project was somehow lesser. Because we have been told that the number was bigger than whatever happened between Harambee and Gabon, which actually was again the realms of regulations. So this one, there was no regulation actually, and the numbers went overboard. And if I go by the numbers, going by the 30,000, which is supposed to be there, and we are being told that it was even above, 9 million is what I'm actually being settled on. Yet, we are being told that they only managed to collect 7 million. Okay, that aside, as Eshtemi has said here, you could realize that hyping a game of such magnitude does not call for influencers. These are the teams that are coming from the strongest backyard that ever this country has experienced in the game of soccer. And if you go by how actually we were fueling that game, including me and Eshtemi here, it was just by default. You would just find yourself trying to hype it on your social media platform, even without being paid. So as to say, so many people actually hype. Okay, let me not go to treble. Like I said, the Luos in the side of Gori, they would go actually rampant on it. The Luyas on the side of AFC Leopard, they would go heavy on their social media pages without being influenced by money. So as to get the information that these people were being paid 90,000 shillings is what actually surprises me.
We need to take invoices to the neck.
Surprises me.
So
where was
be paid.
and
what?
Somebody could tell
Eshtemi,
Robinson.
Are you an influencer or a journalist?
But I can do both job.
You
But
had your time.
No.
And
But I'm trying
the ground was open for you to say all
I'll
this.
jump onto you
Why are you
again.
trying to interject my... You see, Robinson,
Yes.
what I was trying to tell you, you are mentioned about a game between FC Leopard and Shabana and what transpired there.
Yes.
Actually, the cost was somewhere. The
Do
expenditure
you
cost
feel
was
that?
somewhere.
Do you feel that,
Yeah.
Cedric, this the criticism that has come out on this expenditure is because whatever was spent on the tie between AFC and Shabana away in Machakos did not come out clearly as this. Because when you take a look, turudishe hiyo FC na Shabana, because there was no fuel. Kuna vitu mingi sana hazikuwa. There was no fuel, there was no camera hire, there was no media hype. You know,
Yes.
all those things. Is that what has caused the criticism that we're seeing?
And it was away from Nairobi.
And it was away from Nairobi. So walieka gari maji wakaenda.
Your answer, Robbie, is as
Yes.
good as mine.
Yes.
Because you do ask me, before this, the BFs have been going for these matches. They have been using their bus. They have been having steward in this because they lost
Hiyo siku waliosha basi.
Yeah.
Hii
And
ya derby, they
you,
washed the bus.
you happen even to ask me, everything that has been going around these matches before the derby has been influencing that game to go on, and the result has been coming. Maybe FC happen to win, sometimes even goes at the end gets a draw. And as to say, even if it was to double the number of stewards, money that FC collected could not actually have catapulted. What if? And the question of if is coming in, Robbie. And remember, even you asked me some points when you came to my desk. You were like, okay, we are putting here an if. What if FC Leopard would have gone ahead to play with Mahia, but the turnout wouldn't have been as it was at the end? Would they have been budgeted in those 2.7 million?
Cedric, I know we want to take a break, but I have a question for Murima. They say the budget that was on security bouncers and stewards, since leo umeweka bouncer both for Gor Mahia and FC, amounted to 495,000.
I think on that, security bouncers and so on, maybe they did not want to really joke with the fact that it was at Nyayo and it was a Mashemeji derby.
So and bouncers wangapi? And how much do you think they were paying?
To appear benefit of doubt here, security. Let's just give them a benefit of doubt about security, because of course we know it is a game that sometimes have some insecurity in some instances. But I want to ask, before we take the break, take a special look at the VVIP meals.
Utaki wakule?
It's 100,000.
Yes.
Then look at what they charged 270.
Yes.
Then there is wristbands for VVIP.
Wrist 30k.
At 30k. That is already 130,000. Now what I'm wondering is, sasa pale tunatengeneza ni biashara gani inafanyika?
Karaoke. There is camera hire without even a cameraman.
Or 5,000
camera managed.
And then the ambulance, it's 25,000. Pale Machakos ilikuwa ni 21,000. I don't know, maybe sielewi.
The area. Yeah, the ambulance is 25,000.
So that ambulance comes without medicine?
No, there's
medicine.
11,000.
Then the laundry is 4,000. Pale ilikuwa 3,000 and something.
Jezi lazima zioshwe.
So the question is, kwani mwenye aliosha last time amebadilika? Mwingine anaosha sasa hivi.
Robo send break.
Hizo siku zingine moja hizo siku zingine watu wamekuwa akienda na basi. Lakini this particular Mashemeji derby wakarealize we need to fuel his car 8,000.
Lazima tuoshe basi.
But tuoshe basi.
Price 1,200.
Prior to that, you remember even the Shabana ticketing information, rather what they had collected.
Yes.
Yeah, it generated a lot of hits.
Yes.
The club posted on its official pages, and then after the uproar, they deleted. So they went back and then come back again.
Acha tu tuende break, lakini tukirudi tutoe hapo. We have to deal with this issue once and for all, because I also tuende kwa Hassan. Hata mimi nilihype sana kwa Facebook page yangu, hata Muranga Seals siku hype vile. I need to be informed.
Robinson, if you want the Murima man to correctly say Leopards, you must write it as Leopard. Dr. Ngiela Ronald of Athiriva, Machakos County.
Doctor, nimeona namba yako. I'll deal with you in a few.
Felix watching from Kitengela. I see. Ati ndio useme Leopard. Lazima tuseme Leopard. Tuende break.